Hallo miteinander, I'm G86 and this is Metroid II Return of Samus. Last time we cleared 2 whole sectors, but what sounds like a lot wasn't really, because they were very small sectors with very few Metroids to find and kill in them. There was also a lot of walking in between places, so I'd say it was a rather slow-paced episode. Is it going to be different this time? You betcha! In only 15 seconds we got our first missile pod in Sector 7, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's still a lot more things to find and see around here. It is a pretty big place. That save point that we just used was the first that we came across for a good 20 minutes. It's a good thing we don't have to care about battery power, though admittedly the Game Boy had a pretty decent capacity. As I was saying about Sector 7, it strongly revolves around you being airborne. You're gonna be forced to use the space jump a lot, but what's even more special about it is that it introduces a new kind of Metroid. Meet the Zeta Metroid. They are incredibly obnoxious, an absolute pain to fight. They take a whopping 20 missiles to kill, and cannot be hurt from above or below them. You have to hit them in the sides. What's even worse is that they can home and crash into you at a speed and tenacity that makes it almost impossible to dodge. They really are the worst. If you do the math, you'll notice that we lost almost an E-tank against this guy, and that's not even bad for my standards. Yes, this was still an alright attempt. It can go much, much worse. Anyways, that was the second of 7 Metroids in total that we can find in this area. More of them are on the upper levels, usually in crevices, with the ruins being more of a tower that rises up to them this time. That makes Sector 7 very different from the previous areas, as those were usually very flat. The entrance to the ruins that we have just taken leads to a very special room. It is known as the Beam Chamber, and it holds 4 different missile doors. Behind each of them is a different beam. So at this point of the game you can pretty much decide which beam you've liked best over the course, and which one you want to stick with. Guarding this beam chamber are 2 Ganzu, which would be pretty strong enemies if they decided to shoot more often. They barely ever do. Since I decided not to collect it for the first time, we're going to grab ourselves the plasma beam now. We've been sticking with the spacer beam for a long time, but the magic is lost. We've been to couple therapy, it didn't help, so we're ditching it for the plasma beam. Now, if you remember, I mentioned that this beam was the one that is all about raw power. It is not a clever beam, it is pretty hard to use sometimes, but oh, does it make up for it. Now, as soon as you exit the beam chamber like that, your first instinct will be to climb further up, but don't. You'll be missing this little passageway. A passageway that hides another little Metroid. Because of its position, this is another one of those spots where you just might forget to look into. So, if you're missing that very last survivor again, this is where you should look first. The question is, what kind of Metroid is it? A Gamma Metroid, fortunately. It's hard to believe that they have become the lesser evil of them now, but that's just how it is. With the Gamma Metroids, I've always felt that they overstayed their welcome just a little bit. It would have been nice to have something in between them and the Zeta Metroids. A missing link if you want. Believe me, I'm not asking for more Zetas. No way. We've crossed another Metroid off our list, and we can get out of here away from these floating anti-gravity spikes, it seems. Well, if you think of Samus's world in 3D, they do make sense, if they spanned over the whole broadside of the hallway from foreground to background. So nothing unusual there. From here on out, we have to climb to the very top of the ruins, navigating past all these Halcyon, which would be much easier if we had the major treasure of Sector 7. But we don't, so we're just gonna have to make do. What we can also witness here is the supreme power of the plasma beam. See how I one-shotted that guy? Yeah. I don't think there's a single enemy in the game that survives a shot of the plasma beam. Now what exactly is this? A graphical glitch? Nope, it's supposed to be pitch black down here. And this part of the game is kind of difficult if you don't know what you're doing. There are a missile pod and an E-tank down here. And getting them can be very tricky because the only way to know if you're moving or not is to lay bombs and scroll the screen. Now, to not leave you in the dark, I'll explain to you how to get those items. For the missile pod that we already got, you first have to bomb down, and then when you've dropped down, you can move to the right, bomb once more, and the missile pod will be there to roll into. Getting the E-tank is much trickier. You first have to hold to the right while bombing, then you can destroy another block above you that's located about halfway to the right, and then you can find the passage upwards that leads to the E-tank. Absolutely worth it, even if it is a little bit annoying if you're doing it without having it memorized. Honestly, I wouldn't say that design choice was a particularly good one, but it's just something that you have to persevere. But we have 5 whole E-tanks now, and that is actually the maximum that Samus can hold in Metroid II. The number of E-tanks that you can get in Metroid games really varies greatly, and if I'm not mixing anything up, Metroid II has the least E-tanks in the series, even less than its predecessor. Just goes to show what I said before, that this game isn't really built much around combat, really more about exploration and not even too much about puzzle solving. This encounter right here may remind you a lot of the one in Sector 3, where we also had to shoot our way through the sand first, in order to not have him in our face immediately and get roughed up. We did a little bit, but oh well, at least it wasn't a Zeta Metroid. And yes, there is more than one Zeta Metroid in Sector 7. I'm pretty sure you figured that much. I don't think I spoiled anything, because everything else would have been a big surprise. Right above this cave is something else that we want, and for a change, we're not going to rely on our space jump to get it, because we have to use our bombs. Now, you will once again be reminded of Sector 3 here. There was another secret there that was pretty much the exact same, and just like that one, I never found this one as a child. I mean, if you look at it, it really is very unsuspicious. It's really just a random block that's bombable. What does getting up here get us? Well, it's a 2-for-1 deal this time. As a first, we get another energy tank. If this makes me sound like a liar, I said that we could only hold 5 energy tanks. I never said there were only 5 energy tanks in the game. We also get another missile pod. But, you know, grabbing this one excess energy tank really doesn't do a whole lot for us. It's pretty much just like a one-time full refill. It's not even as good as one of those static, permanent energy refills. So it really wouldn't hurt you a lot if you missed it, but we're not going to. This is meant to be a 100% completion run. I mean, it's not going to be a 97.4% completion run. I mean, how does that even sound? What are we, some decimal-loving dorks? Of course not. Anyway, if we enter the ruins from the right side here, we can get the very last suit upgrade of the game, and we do want that. However, there's also something here that we do not want, a Zeta Metroid. Now, you might be wondering, is there a good strategy against these guys? So listen up, there is. The best strategy is to not use a strategy. Really, just be as aggressive as you can against these guys. Keep them pinned down with missiles so that they can't move, because as soon as they move, you lose. That Zeta Metroid was guarding something, and it is hidden up here in another statue room. I say hidden even though it'll probably only take you 2 seconds to find it, and the item that we're talking about here is possibly very familiar to you, if you've been on a certain site on the internet. It goes by the name of this item and even uses its symbol on its logo. It is the screw attack, but if that site is the only place you know the screw attack from, then that's pretty darn sad. You really need to catch up on your video game history. I've got nothing against that website, of course. Getting the very iconic screw attack marks the point of the game where you have become king of the world and all the small critters should just bow down, give up and worship you. Yes, it is that good. Is it better than the space jump? Well, hard to say. Those two items complement each other, go together in harmony. But what might the screw attack even do? It's somewhat difficult to explain and I can't show you just yet. But we will see what it can do soon. Very soon. Right now, we are actually almost done with moving around in a full circle. If we drop all the way down here, you will recognize the very start of this episode. You will also see that there are a lot of flying critters here that we might have to avoid. Nope, this time things are different. This time, the enemies should be avoiding us. Yes, this is what the screw attack does. Whenever you're making somersaults, Samus becomes an absolutely invincible death machine. Honestly, I think it's kind of gruesome how the screw attack simply rips these enemies into pieces. But no one cared back then, it was all too pixelated. I always felt that it needed a certain kind of technology to make people understand how dark and mature Metroid as a franchise was supposed to be. Though it still felt incredibly sudden when the Prime series got the equivalent of an M rating in my home country. But that might also have to do with the bad reputation of first-person shooters here. After entering and clearing this sandy chamber a little bit, we can disturb another Zeta Metroid in his disco party that he's having in this former shell. Looking closer at these Zeta Metroids, they are strangely cute, aren't they? I mean, the big bug-eyed heads, the comparably small pudgy bodies, they have very infantile features. Oh, that's why they're so strong. They're attacking Samus right at her motherly instincts. Oh, those fiends. Everyone knows that is her biggest weakness, but luckily Samus has got us to pull the trigger for her. And believe me, I feel no qualms about blasting bestial babies. No siree. Visible from a little bit below was another missile pod. It's actually very easy to overlook, just because you have to go very close to the wall, but we know it's there, so it's no problem. Guess what? That was actually the very last item in the game. We have all the collectibles, we've found all the equipment upgrades, we are done with finding stuff. From here on out, it's only Metroid hunting. And with a Gamma Metroid at hand, we can do that just now. Now, honestly, until this point I was kind of proud of myself. I did surprisingly well against the Zeta Metroids, but now this is a little bit embarrassing. I mean, I'm getting completely corner-trapped by this Gamma Metroid. Oh well, it doesn't actually hurt us all that much because we fought this guy last for a reason. There's another energy refill right here. Getting this sector done marks a good spot for ending the video. I'm Gesh86, this was Metroid II, Return of Samus, and next time we'll see what Sector 8 holds in store for us. Only 6 Metroids left. Our goal seems in sight. Bis bald!